chapter 28 in the fourth section of the Igeres HaKodesh. We are in middle of this chapter. Where are we exactly? 27. The beer. Not 28, 27. Okay, so Hillel, yesterday you were out. We learned a very important rule that he brings from the Zohar. The Zohar says the tzadikaya, the ispater, a tzaddik that passes on, he's found all over in all the worlds, more so than his lifetime. And this saying of the Zohar, the Holy Zohar, is not one that Chabad created, but rather the Zohar HaKodesh, Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, is the originator of the statement. And the importance of the statement is that one's real life is not limited, created by the physical. And this is very important for each and every one of us, and as a Torah belief that life is not about the physical, but rather life is about the spiritual. And you should know that this idea also has its place in understanding the immortality of the soul. You know, the early philosophers, Plato and Aristotle, non-Jewish philosophers, they believe that once the body of a person passes away, there's no remnant whatsoever. That's it. You had your chance, and it's over. And our Holy Torah disagrees vehemently with that attitude. What does the Torah say? That there is an neshama, and the soul is what vivifies the body. And when the body passes on, the soul remains. The total opposite of basic philosophy as presented by, for example, Plato and Aristotle. So when we talk about the 13 principles of belief, the Yud Gimel Ikrei Emunah, 13 principles, Yud Gimel, 13 principles. According to Maimonides, according to Rambam, if a person doesn't believe in even just one of the 13 principles, the Rambam basically says the person is a heretic, an apikoris. You can't say, for example, I believe in the unity of God and Hashem is all and everything. But in Tchiyas HaMesim, in the belief that there'll be a day when the body will be resurrected, Tchiyat HaMesim, and the physical body that passed away will stand up, I don't believe that. According to the Rambam, you could be as frum as you are, and daven and shake and bake and cry and Yom Kippur, and you are a heretic. You're an apikoris, because you haven't accepted all of the 13 principles. You can't make a split and say, this principle I accept, and this principle I reject. According to the Rambam, it doesn't work that way. It's either all or nothing. Either you accept, that's why it's called the Yud Gimel Ikrei Emunah, the 13 mainstay Ikarim. You know what an Ikar is? There is a tree, and there is the root of the tree. For the tree to grow properly and eventually to give good fruit, you have to have a strong foundation. And if the foundation is weak or is messed up, the tree ultimately will grow sideways and ugly, and ultimately the fruit will be no good. So the Rambam says there are 13 principles. Each of these principles are the foundation of Yiddishkeit, of Judaism, of Torah. What are one of the 13 principles? That I believe, Ani Mamin Be'emunah Shalema, I believe with complete and whole faith, Be'bias HaMashiach, and the coming of the Messiah, of the Mashiach. Another one of the 13 principles is, I believe with complete faith that one day the body will be resurrected. That's right. It will just rise from the earth. And that's why everyone knows there is one opinion, one tradition, that people after 120, they try to have themselves buried. They give instructions that they should be buried in Eretz Yisrael. Because why should they have to go through all the tunnels, the mechilos, from China and Africa and America, and go through all the tunnels till they end up in the tunnel somewhere in Eretz Yisrael and then get up? They might as well be buried close to the Beis HaMikdash, and they'll have a less of a ride, less of a schlep. But the point is, right, no transportation necessary, less transportation. But the point is, guys, that this is an ikar. This is an ikar. This isn't a tuffle. It isn't ancillary. This is a primary belief in Judaism. Now, what we're learning here, he quotes the Zohar, the Holy Zohar, that a tzaddik, the spater, that a tzaddik who passes on, is found more so on earth after his passing than he was before his passing. This seems to be enigmatic. This seems to be a puzzle, a riddle. How can that be? So the Alter Rebbe, the Balatanya here, gives us the insight. And he says, you know how it could be? Because your view of a person in general, and a tzaddik in particular, needs to be correct. And if you look at them as the physical, then you're right. Once the physical finishes, it's over. Even though Yogi Berra said it ain't over till it's over, but at some point it's over, right? You know, how long can you already party after the Super Bowl? You can drink beer and eat popcorn and get drunk, and then the next day have a hangover. But there comes a time when you got to go back to work. Enough already with the partying. The Super Bowl is over. Ge'ended, gemarnu. When it comes to the neshama, says the Alter Rebbe, the soul, the neshama, never was impacted by the happenings of the guf. Do you understand what that means? That means like this. Yes, there is sin and there is mitzvahs, averos and mitzvahs. And there is dirt and schmutz that if you eat and coffee, you drink coffee and you have ketchup and you eat and you make stains on your shirt, you need to wash your shirt. There's no question about it that if you soil your clothing, spiritually, you need to have a cleansing. And the cleansing ain't fun, because when you go into the wash machine cycle, it bangs you around from the right and the left. And that's why, one of the reasons, by the way, we say Kaddish. The 11 months that we say Kaddish for a soul is to create a protective coat around the soul so that it has less pain from the purification process. That's one of the reasons. But nevertheless, the essence of the soul wasn't touched by sin. And that's why we have the idea of a Baal Teshuvah. What's the idea of a Baal Teshuvah? A Baal Teshuvah means that although outwardly I did this and I did that, but deep down my soul was pure the entire time, and now I am bringing my body and my consciousness back to my real self being pure, i.e. the Baal Teshuvah. So the Alter Rebbe says here that since, and by a tzaddik, everything I've just said is so much more, 100-fold. Because a tzaddik's life is, he says three things: emunah, yira, and ava. The entire essence of a tzaddik is not about gashmias, it's not about health, it's not about money, it's not about pleasure, it's about one thing only. You know what the thing is? It's about having faith in God, fear for God, and love for God. That is the classification of a tzaddik. And like I told you yesterday, I don't repeat it again at length, just briefly for the new students, that if you want to know if someone's a real tzaddik or not, you ask yourself that question. You look at their emunah, their yira, and their ava. And if those three are in sync with Hashem at the highest level, they're a tzaddik, up to some degree. So the Alter Rebbe says, and this letter was written to who? To the students of Reb Mendel Vitebsker, who just lost their Rebbe in 1788 and were brokenhearted. And so the Alter Rebbe says, yes, you're right, your Rebbe was taken, and there is Shiva, and there is a 12 months, and there is Kaddish, and there is Mishnayos, and it is sad from that perspective. But the truth is, he says, that your Rebbe is more alive now than he was before, because before he was contained and restricted by the Gashmias, by the physical limitations, and now he's not. And now his doors are open and accessible 24/7, whereas before you had to make an appointment to speak with him, and you had to come to his base medrash to see him. And now, if you identify with the tzaddik, you can have the tzaddik's entire being, his real being, the spirituality, the message he stands for, 24/7. And you should know that this is, I'm not saying this is easy. It's not easy, right? It's much easier. We see each other now, at least on the screen, and we hear each other. But when you don't hear and you don't see, the physicality of the human being is such that the physicality creates in us a blockage. And that's the whole problem. The whole issue and the whole problem is how to avoid the physical limitations being a blockage on the spiritual reality. That's what we're doing here on earth in our entire life. Or said another way, we need to spiritualize the physical. We need to take the Gashmias and make of the Gashmias Ruchnias, because the Ruchnias is the truth. Now let's look inside and continue learning. And we are over here. Let's go back to Bir al Hanal, okay? Hillel, could you guys show everybody what it's the part 2 to the letter 27, which begins with Bir al Hanal. I assume you are Shlomo? Shalom Aleichem. You're Shlomo Zerbib?
Yes.
Nice to meet you. Isa, okay, everyone have it now? Let's look inside. Boaz, you got the place?
I'm there, I'm with you.
Good. Shalom. Shalom, shalom, shalom. Isa b'Zohar HaKodesh. We find in the Holy Zohar the Tzaddikayah is spotted, a tzaddik that has passed on, Ishtakach b'kulo almin, is found in all the worlds, Yatir mi b'chayoyi, more than during his lifetime. The Tzarech Lahavin, we must understand, Teinach b'olam esel yoinim, this statement is correct when we're addressing the spiritual worlds, Ishtakach yatir b'alois hashama. He's found more so there when he ascends there after his passing. Right? After his passing, where is Shleima? Where is the neshama after the passing? In Shemayim, in the world, in the holy worlds, the spiritual worlds. So when the Zohar says that a tzaddik's neshama after he passes is found more in all the worlds, I can understand that it's found more in the spiritual worlds, because he's passed away. Continuing inside. Avol beilam hazeh, but how is he found more so after his passing in this world, where you walk on the street, Yehuda, and you have to put on a coat and an umbrella, and when it's cold, How can we say that the tzaddik is found more on earth now than he was during his lifetime? That's the question of the Balatanya. Very straightforward and simple. V'yesh loymar. Here comes his answer. Al derech ma shekibalti ha-maimer hazal. The answer to this question, says the Balatanya, is similar to what I heard from my teachers regarding another statement of the Chazal. Just for the record, when the Alter Rebbe says, Hillel, kibalti, who is he referring to? Boaz? Who is he referring to?
The Maggid?
So, either the Maggid or actually the Menachem Mendel of Vitebsk, because remember, he was the successor to the Maggid after the Maggid's passing. At least, and Maggid passed away in 1773, and Mendel Vitebsk left Eretz Yisrael in 1777. So those 4 years, Moshe, what's the issue?
No, we were just celebrating the fact that we were so current. We visited his
Right. So those 4 years from 1773 to 1777 were the Rebbe, the leader of the Hasidic movement in Volhynia, in that section of White Russia, was who, Daniel? It was the Reb Nachum Mendel, the Vitebsk, the Pri-Horitz, the one who wrote the Sefer Pri-Horitz. So sometimes when the Alter Rebbe says Kibalti, it refers to him too. But usually it means the Maggid. And by the way, it's only brought in Tanya, I think, 2 or 3 times. It's not as though the Alter Rebbe uses the language Kibalti often. It's very seldom. Let's continue. What did he receive? Let's see what he learned from his Rebbe. The Shavik Chayim L'chol Chay. The sages say, the Chazal say, a departed tzaddik has left life, Shavak Chayim, to all the living. Meaning that a tzaddik, when he leaves this world, he doesn't leave the people who identified with him with Gashmias. He leaves them something called life. What type of life does he leave? Let's see what he says further. Kenoida, as it's known, Shechaya tzaddik einam chayim besoriyim. The life of a tzaddik is not a fleshly life. It's not basar. Kiyim chayim ruchniyim. The life of a tzaddik is spiritual. While the tzaddik is alive, his life is ruchnius. Sheheim, again he repeats, Emunah 1, faith. V'yira 2, fear, awe. V'ava and love. And that's what he leaves his people. How do we know these 3 things? He brings 3 verses. Ki be'emunah ksiv. By emunah it says, V'tzadik be'emunosa yichid. The tzaddik lives by his faith. So Shleima, what do we see from this verse? What is the life of a tzaddik? In this verse, it's emunah. The tzaddik be'emunoto, be'emunosai yichya. Number 2, uveyira, regarding fear, awe. The verse says, Ksiv, yiras Hashem l'chaim, the awe of Hashem leads to life. Clearly, it's the yira. And finally, uvi'ava ksiv, regarding loving Hashem, it says, Reidiv tzedakah v'chesed yimtzu chayim, the one who pursues tzedakah and chesed, kindness and benevolence, will find life. So these 3 psukim, Yehuda, prove that what is life? Emunah, yira, and ava. The chesed to ava, and benevolence, chesed, signifies ava, because what's the core of chesed? Love. When you love something or someone, you do chesed. If you don't love them, or you don't love it, you don't do chesed. So from here we see that faith in God and awe and love of Hashem are all referred to as Chaim, life. So when the Gemara says, right? When the Gemara says, Shavak Chaim l'chol chai, that the tzaddik leaves over Chaim, life, for all the living, what do we mean? What has the tzaddik left over for us? Emunah, Yira, and Ava. 3 things. Okay? Let's continue. And these 3 attributes are present in every world, Adrum Amailus, up to the highest of levels. All are proportionate to the level of the world that we're talking about. One higher than the other, by way of cause and effect, in other words, at any level, each world serves as an antecedent, which means a cause, to the lesser world, the effect, which it brings into being. I don't want to go into it at length, but basically there's a concept called Ila v'Olol, cause and effect, right? When you use your mind, your seichel, you have a result, a midah, an attribute, an emotion. So the seichel is the cause, we call that the Ilah, and the Olul is the result, the midos that come from the seichel, the way you behave and the way you feel as a result of understanding something, that's the effect coming from the cause. So the Alter Rebbe says here that this scenario of Ilah v'Olol is relevant over here. The way you relate to Hashem regarding the issues of faith and belief in God and all of that will bring to a certain fear and love for God. The more you understand and the more you believe, the deeper and more powerful your Yira and Ava is. The less you understand and the less you believe, then your faith and love is weaker. So we see the scenario of Ilah v'Olol, and it's true in every level. That's what we just said. Let's continue. Now, while the tzaddik was alive on earth, these 3 attributes, these 3 issues of faith and fear and love were contained in their vessel and garment. What does that mean, Shleima? It means they were limited. Yes, I understand that these 3 elements are the makeup of a tzaddik, but while the person is on earth, including the tzaddik, they're controlled by the keli, by the vessel, by the physical, right? If you have too much of any of the 3, it shatters the vessel. You know, the Gemara says elsewhere, Arba nichnusu lepardes. 4 rabbis, 4 sages went into Pardes, into the Garden of Eden. 3 of them had a bad result. Only Rabbi Akiva came out not damaged. One of them burnt up. One of them cracked up. You know why? Because when they went in there, they went in with a search of ecstasy and not wanting to come back down. They just wanted to be with God. So they ended up being with God, but it destroyed them. They physically couldn't handle it. Rabbi Akiva, it says, Nichnas b'shalom, he entered peacefully. That's why Yotze b'shalom, he came out peacefully. What does it mean? It means that his intent when he went in was to create shalom. And we have our shalom in the class here. What is shalom? Like I've said many times, shalom takes the right and the left and makes of it peacefulness, right? Because, you know, we say every morning in davening it 3 times a day, Oiseh shalom b'mromov, God makes peace in the heavens. Who's fighting? Have you ever asked yourself the question when you daven? Who's fighting over here that we need God to make peace? The answer is, there's 3 angels. There's Michael, says 2 angels, Michael, Sar Shel Mayim, Michael, the angel of water, of Chesed. Gavriel is Sar Shel Gevura, fire, Eish, Gabriel, and they're at odds with each other. They're fighting with each other. One wants only kindness, and the other one says, no, no, no. You got to take into consideration what they did, and Gevura, you got to limit them. And they're always at each other's necks, at throats. They're fighting with each other. Comes along Hashem and says, guys, both of you are only angels, and you work for me. And I'm telling you, I have room for both of you. I need you both. Therefore, don't think that you're the only game in town. I'm telling you, I need both. Oisa Shalom b'Ibrahimov. So Hashem makes peace between the two angels. What do we see? We see that angels also have a message and are going in different directions. And it takes Hashem, Osa Shalom, referring to God, Hashem makes Shalom. So the idea of Shalom is to bring together the right and the left and create unity. So why do I say this? Because we're learning here that while a tzaddik was on earth, these three midos were limited by their vessel, meaning the experience that one had with the tzaddik's faith and fear and love for God was perceived by each and every one of us in a different way, Boaz. And that's why you have people arguing with each other, or groups arguing. Because one group says, this is what the tzaddik wanted, and the other group says, no, this is what the tzaddik wanted. Because the keli, the vessel, lends itself for interpretation and differences. B'bchinas mokem gashmi, on the plane of the physical place, she b'chinas nefesh akshura begufay, which means it's when the soul, the nefesh, of the tzaddik is bound to the body. The Chok Talmid of Eina Mekablim, and during his lifetime, his students receive only a reflection of these attributes. The Zivon, an array. During the lifetime of the tzaddik, Boaz, what we receive from the tzaddik is only what's called a ha'ora, a reflection, a ziv, a ray, a glimpse. Hameach chutz l'keli zeh, that radiates beyond the vessel, beyond the tzaddik's body, al yedei diburav, u'machshavaisav HaKodeshim, through the tzaddik's holy utterances and his thoughts. So the tzaddik's utterances, what the tzaddik says, and what the tzaddik thinks, reveal to a minor degree a little bit of what's going on really inside. And that's why the sages say, Hillel, Shein Adam Oimed al Das Rabbi, that one cannot come to the depth of his master's teaching until the passage of 40 years. You know that. Arboim Shana. After 40 years, you say, aha, that's what my Rebbe meant. Now I got it. Took you 40 years. Why? Because those 40 years, everything was contained and limited. After 40 years, you had what we call expansive consciousness. Your conscious became expanded, and now you say, aha, I got it. You wake up, and now, oh, wow, boy, was I walking in the fog. And I thought my tzaddik did this and said this and was this, and I have it all wrong, Shleima. It took you 40 years. Because only after 40 years you have what's called Bina, Boaz, Harchavas Hadas, extension of the mind, or better said, the expanded consciousness, and you're able to see it in a very different way. So this is all during his lifetime. But after he passes on, since the nefesh, that part of the soul that we call nefesh, there are 5 parts of the soul: nefesh, ruach, neshama, chaya, and yechida. The acronym for those 5 is Naran Chai. Naran starts with a nun, Nefesh, Reish is Ruach, the second Nun is the Shama, Chai is Chaya, and Yechida. So he says that after a tzaddik's passing, the Nefesh aspect of the soul remains where? In the grave. In the grave. And it's separated from the Ruach, which comprises these three attributes. And after his passing, it is in the Garden of Eden. The three attributes are now unbounded by the body, and they're in Gan Eden, a spiritual place whose atmosphere surrounds every individual. You see, my friends, we've been making a mistake. Go out on the street of Bet Shemesh and ask someone, where's Gan Eden? You know what they're going to tell you? You tell me what they're going to tell you. Where's Gan Eden? Boaz, where's Gan Eden? Yeah. Some will say Bnei Brak. Other people will say Johannesburg. The point is, everyone's going to say it's elsewhere. What we're learning today, Hillel, is something you're finding out the secret to the recipe today. It's right around you. It's not elsewhere. It's around you. It's a consciousness that's around you, and either you access it or you don't. If you don't access it, it's in Johannesburg or in Bnei Brak. If you access it, it's right around you. Says the Alter Rebbe here, a tremendous insight, that the spiritual space whose atmosphere surrounds every individual in this world, that's the Gan Eden of every individual, and the question is whether you access it. But the point being that the tzaddik, after his passing, his nefesh is separated from the ruach. That's the other aspect of the soul. The nefesh is found in the grave. That's why another very important fundamental idea comes from this. When you go to the gravesite of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai or another tzaddik, you're not praying to a stone. You're praying to a body that's physically passed away and buried, but who has there the nefesh every single day. Until Mashiach's coming and the resurrection of the dead, the nefesh aspect of that tzaddik hovers around the caver and is there. Yes, Moshe?
One of the reasons, Rob, that of course, we don't cremate, that is a big factor why we don't cremate, besides the spiritual element.
Hillel, could you repeat the question? I didn't hear it.
That's why is that central to why we don't cremate?
Yeah, that's not the reason we don't cremate. The reason we don't cremate is because Hashem says, I gave you the body, and I take it. It's mine. It's not yours. I gave you a loan. I loaned you a body. So, you're stealing. If you cremate, you're stealing something from me. That's, but spiritually, the idea that the body still has an association with the soul is true. But the literal reason why we don't cremate is because it's not yours to tamper with. And by the way, that applies not only for cremation, but even for making an unnecessary operation and type of permanent either improvement or damage to the body is halachically a very serious issue, and we deal with it. After a person passes on, the Chevra Kadisha will gather any and all parts or aspects that come from the body, because everything in the body is holy. Anyway, let's continue. Lefichach, therefore, Yochel Kol HaKodesh Elov Lekabel Chelik Epchinas Rucha Shebegan Eden. Says the Alter Rebbe, whoever is close to the tzaddik can receive a part of his ruach, his spirit, which is in the Garden of Eden. That means the actual part of the very essence of these attributes, as opposed to a mere reflection. Remember, What we learned earlier is that all we have from the tzaddik during his lifetime, Hillel, is a reflection. Now, after his passing, that there was a separation between the nefesh and the ruach, and where is the ruach of the tzaddik? The spirit, it's in Gan Eden. And where is Gan Eden? All around you. So if you identify and connect, you actually can get from the ruach of the tzaddik the faith and the love and the fear, which is limitless, compared to the way it was during the lifetime of the tzaddik. Before I continue, I want to make sure... You lost me? I lost you?
No, I said it's like a wireless transmission.
Right. Hoyel, let's see what he says. Hoyel veina b'toch keli. Yehuda, why? Because the ruach of the tzaddik is now not contained within the vessel. V'loy b'pchinas mokim gashmi, nor is it on the plane, it's not in the physical space. But it's in Gan Eden, which, as was explained, it's to be found within this world as well. How do we know this? He brings a chazal. Kinoida b'maimer azal, as we learn from the saying of the sages, the teaching of the sages of blessed memory. Al Yaakov Avinu Shlomo, regarding Yaakov, Jacob, Olav HaSholom, of blessed memory. Shenichnes yimei began Eden. The chazal say, it's a chazal, it's not Zohar, it's not Kabbalah, it's not Chasidus. The chazal say that when he went into the room, the Garden of Eden, Gan Eden, entered with him. You imagine, the door opens up of the base medrash you're in comes in Yaakov, and all of a sudden you smell Gan Eden, because by Yaakov it was alive. When he came to be blessed by his father Yitzchak, right? Shalom, when Yaakov, when he came, right? Yaakov came to be blessed. He comes into the room, and Rashi brings over there that the smell of Gan Eden was in the room when he walked into his father. And so it's written in a sefer called Asar Mamoros, that the atmosphere of the Garden of Eden envelops every individual. And in this atmosphere are recorded are all the good thoughts and utterances of Torah and divine worship. So in other words, when one identifies with Gan Eden, all the good things that you did throughout your lifetime is felt, is real. So if we identify with the tzaddik after his passing, we smell his Gan Eden, and we have his Gan Eden. So what do we have? His faith in God, his love and his fear. And we have it in his way, not in our way, which is limited. Okay?
Is that only the time of the Patira? Or is that carries on?
He said, no, not just at the time of the Patira. It's from the Patira on. But it's not automatic that it's any time after the Patira if you identify with it. It's not like, okay, if you're walking in darkness and you're totally out of it, you ain't smelling no Gan Eden. You're gonna smell a bad smell. What we mean to say is that if you're sensitive, in other words, like what he's saying is that you should know that the tzaddik is giving you the opportunity, if you identify properly, to get the full plate of his faith, love, and fear. But it still takes our activity. And if we're messed up and we're elsewhere, we ain't going to smell anything. Or we'll smell very bad, So, but the answer to your question is, it's from the time of the Patira and on. So that's why when you go to the cave, but again, and what we're learning today, I think one of the chidushim is that it doesn't require you to only go to a caver. You can sit in your dining room and your living room on the couch, and if you relate to what the tzaddik wants and what the tzaddik was all about, you can have that sensation of Gan Eden right there in your living room. Now, going to the kever is another important experience. God forbid, I'm not making light of it, because the nefesh, you see, here we're talking about, I want you guys to be clear, we're talking about ruach. Gan Eden is associated with what we call the ruach of the soul. The kever is associated with the nefesh of the soul. And it's two different parts to the soul. So you can't say, I'll just do one, I won't have the other. Both are important. What the difference is another discussion. But the fact is that we learned today that there is the nefesh which hovers over the tzaddik at the kever. So the nefesh is not in your dining room and living room. It's the ruach aspect of the tzaddik that's found, that it's where the Gan Eden of the tzaddik is, and that is wherever you make the tzaddik be. Okay, Chevra, we'll continue tomorrow more. Sei gesund.
Yeah, great.